How's it going today, everyone? So I was trying to come up with a video idea and thought, why not rank my favorite moments from a bunch of different One Piece characters? Now, not everyone is going to be here, but at least most of the important ones that we all love. And obviously there are a lot of characters I will need to cover, so each of my reasonings won't be too long or in depth, but by the end of each one, you will hopefully at least understand that pick, whether you agree or disagree. And if you do happen to disagree, please let me know what you would put in its place, as a video like this should have plenty of discussion around it. So quickly, I'll throw up the list of characters I decided to go over today, with the final number coming to about 60. Everyone here should cover most of our favorites as well as a few others. And also, yes, this list is in a random order. As you can see, there are a lot of characters to get through, so I don't know how long this video will be, but if you do end up liking it, why not consider dropping a like and maybe even a sub for more of this type of content. And also, please remember, this is just my opinion. Anyways, with that being said, let's get into the video. So the first character we are starting off with today is Usopp, and I decided to go with this fight versus Luffy during Enies lobby, which is one of the times he truly got in his bag after seeing the internal conflicts he was having, kind of feeling like he'd been left behind by the others, even more so than just the going merry situation. So seeing him give his all in this fight, basically fighting for his own pride, was for sure the most impactful for me. And it also sets up Usopp's journey in the next arc perfectly. There is so many to choose from for Luffy, as he is the main character of One Piece, but I ended up narrowing it down to Luffy smiling at Sanji in Whole Cake Island, as it really just hits different seeing Luffy so happy he got his friend back, because right from the moment Sanji fought Luffy, he knew Sanji was hiding something the entire time, but at no point did he ever consider giving up on him. He quite literally starved himself, got beat up, got captured, and after Sanji finally lets his feelings out, Luffy can do nothing but smile knowing he finally got through to him, creating just an amazing emotional moment that I will immediately point to as my favorite out of all the great ones we've had from Luffy. Alright, for my guy Sanji, I ended up picking him crying while going away from Luffy and Nami, in which this really sunk in that all hope was lost for Sanji. As to him, he thought his life was done for after him going to the furthest thing he could think of, that of course being fighting Luffy, which in turn he believed, or at least hoped, he was out of the crew, therefore meaning he has no one left. And with us seeing what he has lived through as a child growing up, now being forced to go back to that forever makes him crying after the final attempt to make his friends leave is peak writing from Oda. So next up, we got the world's strongest swordsman, Dracula Mihawk, and with there not really being that much to go off of, I had to go with him allowing Zoro to live, clearly seeing some potential in him, motivating Zoro to try and surpass him, which of course sets up one of the most hyped endgame rematches we will get in the series. So hopefully we do get some standout Mihawk fights before then, to make this rematch even more special for both Mihawk and Zoro respectively. Next up, we got Pedro, and it's of course his heroic sacrifice during Whole Cake, which is probably one of the more underrated picks in the series. It's just a really raw moment with Pedro, as we don't get that many actual permanent endings following his sacrifice in One Piece, so that makes it pretty unique in that sense. And another cool thing as well is this moment is actually called back to by Luffy to motivate him in this fight with Kaido, so it's cool to see the impact it had beyond that arc. Nami's best moment, I believe, is her telling Enel that if she's not with her friends, she would rather have no gold at all, rejecting the temptations of this false god and putting her own life on the line with nothing to regain from it but her own morals. To me, this kind of signifies what her character has been about this entire time, which most of us could gather ever since Arlong Park took place, with her reasoning for what she did. But saying what she said to Enel, who could end everything for her in that moment, makes it that much better. It's also funny seeing people still slander Nami for being this greedy character when this exists. But yeah, that's what I got for Nami. So for Ben Beckman, this would 1000% be taking Kid's arm if we actually saw it, so thanks to Oda for that. But his actual best is him trying to press Kizaru during Marineford following the arrival of the red hair pirates. The confidence he had here was pretty cool, I guess, but we don't need to talk about what happened after. Honestly, it's a little lackluster from Shanks' right hand man, but we probably will get to see more of Beckman soon, since the red hair pirates are extremely active now. For Zoro, I really wanted to put him demanding loyalty and respect for Luffy after the departure of Usopp from the crew, and saying that the only way he can get back in the crew is to apologize to Luffy, which I absolutely agree with, as nothing Usopp did should be tolerated whatsoever. But with that being said, I just can't look past how epic of a moment that nothing happened was. Y'all already know how amazing this is, taking the pain Luffy was dealing with in a very brutal scene, ending with him somehow still standing through all of it, then dropping one of the best lines in all of anime and manga. This still holds up as Zoro's best for me, as we don't get that many character driven moments for Zoro on this level. Katakuri making his fight fair versus Luffy in his eyes by injuring himself immediately after seeing what his sister was doing to basically try and cheap out a win by weakening Luffy is the best moment for me, as Katakuri was prideful enough to do this to himself, as this is a man-to-man fight that he accepted alone. By the way, I mentioned pride a good bit in this video, as it is one of my favorite things I like to see being portrayed in stories, which also happens to be one of the bigger themes in One Piece. Next up we have Kuma, who skyrocketed in my favorite character list recently during Egghead. I really love the entirety of the Kuma flashback. I think it's some great work from Oda, still proving he can make an amazing backstory. But Kuma blasting Saturn with his punch is really up there with the likes of Luffy punching the Celestial Dragon for me, and easily is my favorite from Kuma. He did something we all wanted to do and would have done ourselves, considering the amount of pain Kuma went through as well as his daughter. I really don't think there's anybody on this planet that didn't love this moment. For Crocodile, I chose him stabbing Luffy. This was the first real heavy hitter Luffy faced, and he established himself as one of the better villains in One Piece, and really was just a menace in this moment. Never before Alabasta did I feel like, how is he actually going to beat the villain in this arc? This really felt like there was extreme levels between them. Obviously we all knew Luffy would live, but he really did feel like a threat at the time. Sengoku actually acknowledging the new age of One Piece, as well as picking Aokiji as the next fleet admiral, was really nice to see. He chose Aokiji after what had transpired at Marineford, and seeing how much was lost, as he knows if Akainu was the next man up, things would turn from bad to even worse from a morality standpoint, as Aokiji and Sengoku's justice are a bit more in line than Akainu's and let's say the Gorosei on a human scale. Hiruleuk's speech stands the test of time in One Piece as one of the realest things that has been said in the series, and can be applied to someone like Whitebeard, who the government tried to erase, along with Ace to end the age of piracy, but Whitebeard made sure their legacy would be carried on by the others, which correlates directly back to what Hiruleuk's speech said, saying a man is really gone when he is forgotten. It's just a really nice quote that holds substance in real life as well, rather than just in the series. Robin's best moment is of course her saying "I want to live." If y'all have something else, please drop it in the comments. This is a truly amazing moment in an amazing arc, and more likely than not in most people's top moments in general. And for the ones who saw this scene in the anime for the first time, you know how hard it hits there. Next up we have Cobra, which I think the best for him is Cobra trying to self-destruct the tomb as a last resort to stop Crocodile, in what would have been his final act as king if Luffy had not arrived to ultimately fight and defeat Crocodile. It really felt like something a king who truly cares about his people would do, so I had to put it here. Vivi trying to stop the rebels in Alabasta and the conflict overall was pretty surreal, seeing the amount of desperation in these panels to get her people to stop fighting, especially when considering if they couldn't be stopped, all of it would have been for nothing. So you could imagine how that would feel, seeing an unnecessary war being started all because of Crocodile. For Brook's moment, it's just him taking on Big Mom. Like, clearly he was way out of his league during this fight, but made some super cool moments out of it. Not looking too bad against a not really trying Yonko, even managing to sneak away the poneglyph, meaning in the end he still accomplished what he set out to do from the beginning, so I gotta respect Brook for this. Next we got Akainu, and I'm gonna put his whole little tirade after Ace's death, so this would include a couple of things like him trying to obliterate Kobe after he went against his justice, or him facing off against the Whitebeard commanders trying to get Luffy and attacking Jinbei, very obviously not stepping down to anyone trying to get in his way. I think just seeing how deep Akainu's justice is for him in this moment makes him a very scary threat for anyone he faces in the future, and already has left a huge mark on the pirating world. world. So Sabo's number one scene for me comes during Dressrosa in his reunion with Luffy, and that's when he tells Luffy thanks for staying alive. And it's just a really wholesome moment of Sabo appreciating the only family he has left, even making Luffy cry finally finding out at least one of his brothers is still alive, as well as making their bond even stronger, which will be very important during the final saga as they both can lean on each other from now on. Frankie running over a Yonko, literally one of the 4 pirates who's considered to be at the top of the food chain with the motorcycle, is insane to me. I truly wonder how long it took Oda to just say, alright, let's make Frankie do this to one of the most hyped up characters in the show. It's just a really wild moment that I guarantee you if I gave someone 100 predictions of what would happen, they would not guess that. Next up we got Ace, and I really hate to put this here, but to me, Ace's death is by far the best moment from him, due to the insane impact it had on the story. Things like the other characters, the world of One Piece, the MC, and the viewer were all changed by this, especially when considering the build up to this, thinking Ace would escape only for them to end that dream in an instant. Easily one of the most important times in the series, and just seeing the battlefield stand still in that moment along with Luffy's reaction was just brutal. Law's best moment to me came during his face-off versus the Marines as well as Smoker. I mean, for the entirety of this encounter, Law is just flexing on the Marines, making someone like Smoker look like pure child's play. I also feel like Law's demeanor of him being very cool and collected during this plays a lot into how great this is, as if every single move he does is just perfectly executed all the way to the point of him baiting Smoker to attack only for him to take his heart. This is easily one of the best displays of someone's mastery of the devil fruit that we don't see all too often, as well as just a beautiful showcasing of how skilled Law is. Jinbei's greatest moment is him no longer bowing down to Big Mom, stating that if he's going to be on the crew of the Pirate King, he can't fear a mere Yonko, cementing this among the best loyalty moments of the Straw Hats, which is just pretty cool to see, and it holds even more weight later on when Jinbei actually does knock Big Mom off the ship. So yeah, that's what I got for Jinbei. Alright, now let's talk about Don Quixote do Flamingo and his speech after being captured, which is just flat out cold. His goal was always to watch the world burn, more specifically the world government and what they had created. Obviously, with his role being taken from him, he states the rest of the pirate world following his defeat will continue to rise up until someone claims the throne, and eventually all this chaos will end up resulting in the celestial dragons he hates the most being overthrown. I mean, you really can't ask for a much better speech than this. I will pay Oda myself if or when Doflamingo gets freed to please have him laughing at the people of Marijua as it gets taken down. That would easily be one of my favorite moments in One Piece. I had to throw Yasopp on here solely due to the fact of the latest chapters we see him in, he easily destroys a ship with no effort at all. So let's just hope Usopp is looking like this after Elbaf is over, as most of us are expecting big things from him this arc. I didn't really know what to put here for Big Mom, but I guess it's her looking menacingly over Law and Kid. But I'm not really fond of Big Mom, she's probably my least favorite of the super hyped up characters. So if the Big Mom fans want to let me know what it is, please do so. Next we have Fujitora, and him wanting to see Luffy is a really emotional, kind of wholesome scene, especially knowing that Fujitora blinded himself most likely due to the cruel things and people he saw around the world. But he ends up seeing something great in Luffy that makes him rethink for a second his decision that ultimately makes up his current justice. And once again showing the admirals are human at the end of the day, no matter how good or committed they are at their jobs, which ended up being a complete 180 of how they were originally presented. Now let's talk about Red Hair Shanks, and his moment is stopping Akainu from taking out Kobe. And we all know, as I said earlier, the terror Akainu was causing from Ace's death and afterwards. This being the first thing you do when stepping into the battlefield in Marineford is just insane, as well as acknowledging Kobe for what he done just adds more credence to that. This really is peak One Piece aura, and I don't think we've seen something like this since. As we see after this moment, of course, would lead towards the end of the war, and really solidified to me that Shanks has the greatest on-screen presence in One Piece. Chopper's best moment is him bringing the mushroom back to Hiruluk after everything that happened, pretty much going through this gauntlet of obstacles in his way, and is quite possibly the most wholesome sad moment in this series. I don't know why I smiled while watching this moment, because clearly this is supposed to be a sad sort of thing Chopper went through, but that's just how I felt. But yeah, let me know what y'all think? Kaido's official introduction landing on the Kid Pirates is still the best to me because this is probably the most menacing he's been, just towering over them, along with things being said like to always bet on Kaido or he's the strongest creature in the world, almost being introduced as this final boss that we knew the Kid Pirates had absolutely no chance against. I think this is a perfect introduction to Kaido, which got everyone extremely excited to see what went down in Wano. Now we got Nico Obia, and I chose her saving Nico Robin by saying you have the wrong person. After all these years of her pretty much abandoning her daughter, she took this one moment to try and do something good for her. Even though both of them at the time was hurting from this, it eventually saved Robin's life. It may not redeem everything, but in that moment she did what's best for her daughter in her final acts as a mother. For my guy Eustace Kid, I gotta put him using Damn Punk versus Big Mom. This attack just might be my favorite attack in One Piece. Even though it really is just basically a giant cannon, it still looks insane with all the details to it, as well as Kid is here perfectly matching the energy that should be used with this attack. Honestly, I don't even care if Kid gets a better attack than this. If it's not an upgraded version of this, he can keep it. Also, this was even more insane in the anime. Yamato fighting with Kaido, going against how he is trying to tear down her spirit during that fight was pretty cool to see, especially since she did put on a pretty solid showing against the Yonko. So from the backstory we see to this moment, I think she deserves some praise here. Kizaru's moment comes during the ending of Egghead after an arc of splitting up the community into whether you believed he was mentally conflicted or he wasn't, with some pretty glaring narrative implications shown to us by Oda throughout the arc. An example of this being he stated he should have brought darker shades when talking to Vegapunk, amongst other things, but all of that was finally put to rest when Kizaru loses it talking to Akainu, confirming the theory that he was mentally affected by this. And even with this all being held in, he still ultimately completed his job. Next up we have Pudding, and Pudding had an amazing scene when telling Luffy and Nami the plan of what would be going down at the wedding, and us seeing a shift from her reeling them into the story, making it seem like it was going to be some sort of good thing for Sanji, trying to make them feel bad for her, then going into her completely flipping into an entirely different person, putting a hole into Luffy and Nami's hearts in a time where they could do absolutely nothing about it. This moment hit on all levels, especially in the anime, displaying the change in tones when she says the truth to them. For Corazon, I have him saying I love you to Law, and saving him from following more down Doflamingo's path by truly caring about him, and ultimately giving up his life for Law. Despite being emotionally broken himself, he wanted Law to see something good in people, which is why he smiled. There are a few things I could put here for Whitebeard, but the One Piece is real is the best to me. This would make the world government fail in their goal to hurt the world of piracy with the loss of Ace. But Whitebeard acknowledges this new era of pirates and lights a fuel under everyone to go after the One Piece since they know it's coming from such a credible source, using the legacy he built to inspire others to chase their dream. So while the Marines may have won physically, the pirates' philosophy overtook anything the Marines did. Next we got Zeph, and going back to the time he spent starving when they were sitting on that rock in the middle of the ocean, while we all thought he had so much food sitting in that bag, only for us to find out that is absolutely not the case, as not only did he not have any food with him, Oda took a pretty dark turn to where in the manga, for those who don't know, he ended up eating his own leg to try and survive, and he gave all of the actual food to Sanji. This is just a really gritty moment that definitely caught me off guard, as it probably did to most people. For Blackbeard, of course I went with his dream speech. He showed that our main antagonists, while being almost nothing alike to Luffy, they both have the burning desire to chase after what they want the most, aka their dreams, not letting anything get in either of their ways no matter how they go about it, setting up a perfect dynamic that will all lead to potentially one of the greatest moments in all of anime when they finally clash on the road to the One Piece. Garp's best moment comes in Marineford, which is letting Luffy punch him. This was a very hard moment for Garp, as a decision had to be made to either stop Luffy and single-handedly lose everything due to his loyalty to the Marines, or let himself get hit, which even Sengoku knew this was nothing to do with Luffy somehow besting Garp, and everything to do with Garp's fatherhood, which I always will respect Garp for. Next up we have Aokiji, and I chose his fight with Luffy in the Straw Hats. Aokiji's first introduction really showed the Straw Hats they are nothing in the grand scheme of things, pretty much toying around with Luffy and kind of testing him in a sense. But all of that considered, in this moment Aokiji showed in a very easy way of how far they truly are from any top tier level whatsoever. Smoker giving this girl money to buy more ice cream, showing he's a decent guy, was not only a great moment for Smoker, but more importantly a great moment for the Marines, as up to that point the Marines were still shown to only be bad people, so this was a nice thing for them. Now let's talk about Gecko Moria. This moment of Moria telling Luffy that he's too weak for the New World is just chilling. Him losing his crew to Kaido clearly changed him to the core so much that he only uses the undead as his army, so he doesn't really need to care for them as he did before, as well as him saying the only result for the Straw Hats if they had continued on their path is death. Just a very raw moment from Oda that I think gets overlooked by most people. Alright, for Buggy, it's honestly just him becoming a Yonko. Like, we knew Buggy was lucky stumbling his way through Marineford, getting all of this attention, even becoming a warlord, but Buggy becoming a Yonko is honestly just hilarious to me. You have Luffy, Blackbeard, Shanks, and then there's just Buggy. If he gets any more lucky than this, he might just become Pirate King. Marco's best showing is him stepping back for the new generation, aka Sanji and Zoro, when they were fighting King and Queen. He adds to this by saying it's time for the stars to take the stage, once again just kind of embracing that new era of piracy like his former captain. This to me is a pretty great moment from Marco. Roger's he laughed panel really made me wonder even more what the One Piece actually is. Obviously before I wanted to know what it is, but this just boosted that by a lot just by how mysterious this moment is. It makes sense why it became one of the most iconic panels in One Piece. For Rayleigh, I love how even in his old age, his reputation alone can cause someone like Blackbeard to be cautious in taking him on, even though they both really know Blackbeard will win no matter what, even if it is difficult. It goes to show the amount of respect that is put on Rayleigh's name. For the next moment, we have Reiju being the only one to show any type of sympathy besides his mother to Sanji during her time of helping him escape. And it just shows how bleak Sanji's situation truly was, as it took years of basically torture until she finally broke down to help Sanji go and live a life she knew she couldn't, but Sanji absolutely deserved, pushing him away to go find people who would be kind to him. And yeah, just another amazing moment coming from Whole Cake. Now we have to talk about Bellamir's sacrifice for Nami and Nojiko. Even though Nami and Nojiko would have been okay for the time being if she didn't do this, had Arlong found out later that Bellamir lied, there's probably only one result that would have happened to them. And also keep in mind, these two would have been caught either way due to Arlong saying all the ships would be destroyed, leaving them basically abandoned. So this was the best option for Bellamir to take for the sake of her daughters. Oden coming in with one of the top 3 deaths in the series for me personally, so I can't not pick it here. It's such a great moment that solidified Oden as a heavy fan favorite character, as he should be. Next we have Van Augur sniping this seagull from probably dozens of miles away very casually, which was a crazy flex considering Usopp is supposed to be his matchup and still hasn't performed anything close to this, which is probably the best shot in the entire series so far. Saturn's payoff after this moment wasn't really that impressive, but I chose Saturn arriving on the island after lurking the entire time, and it was cool seeing Kizaru, Luffy, Zoro, and Lucci's reaction to his presence. I think it was a really good way to build up his threat level, even though, like I said, it didn't really pay off that much like I thought it would. For the next moment, I got Imu getting rid of Saturn during the ending of Egghead. This shows Imu pretty much has no tolerance and will get rid of you if need be, which I'm very happy about because Saturn had to go after what he had done to Kuma and Bonnie. This is pretty much all we have, so yeah, an interesting moment for our overarching villain. Kobe getting a fire lit under him again by Luffy when they reunited was pretty cool, clearly foreshadowing what the dynamic between these two will be, and it's also worth noting that we eventually see this pay off in Egghead using an attack we never thought the old Kobe would use. Boa's best moment, I got her fighting with Smoker and protecting Luffy in Marineford. This is like the 3rd time Smoker has gotten owned, so please pray for his return to be great. Jozu tanking Mihawk's attack that was meant to hit Whitebeard is pretty impressive even when considering it wasn't a named attack, because you'd imagine Mihawk would put some amount of power behind it. As I already said, it was intended for Whitebeard as a means of measuring distance and power. Enel restarting his own heart after everyone had thought they'd won is a moment that I always go back to show that Enel easily has one of the coldest moments in the series. So for Bonnie, I chose her using Gear 5, and I know this moment is split in the community pretty, but I've really grown to love this payoff due to the near perfect build-up it had. In my opinion, I think Bonnie's journey up to that moment with her, Kuma, and Nika being the face of this arc is great, wrapping up nicely with her being quote-unquote freed by Nika to use this form. I don't have a specific one for Lucci, but his fight with Luffy marked the first truly insane fight in the series, which was just a brutal slugfest between these two characters. And finally, at the last spot we have Dragon, who doesn't really do much besides whatever this is, but him saving Sabo was nice to see. But Oda, we are in Elbaf now, so please give us something to do with Luffy's father. But yeah, that's what I got for Dragon. That's gonna end off my list of moments from random One Piece characters. If I somehow forgot your favorite character, I'm sorry, but let me know who if I did. And honestly, it was fun making this. I'm sure most of you will make it even more fun disagreeing with me in the comments. At the end of the day, One Piece is over 1,000 chapters with hundreds of amazing moments, so no list will ever be perfect, but this is a different type of video I've wanted to make for a while, so yeah. If any of you want me to go more in depth on some of these moments, let me know, as most of these I can definitely make into a full-length video discussing it. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Like I said, drop your favorite moments if you disagree with any of mine, and if you are somehow still here, why not drop a sub if you liked the video. With that being said, that's all from me. Peace.